Welcome. This is the Punk CX podcast. My name is Adrian Swinsko, and I'm an advisor, best-selling author, Forbes contributor, and general explorer of the service and experience space. On the podcast, I seek out and interview entrepreneurs, leading business people, authors, tech leaders, academics, and generally cool people doing interesting stuff in the service and experience space. Check out the archive at adrianswinsco.com. That's enough from me. Let's get into the interview. So welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I have Suvi Lin, who has an interesting title, which is Strategic Business Development at Netigate AB, founder at Lumoa, excuse me for my pronunciation. I mean, that's kind of fun. Suvi, I'm sure you're going to explain all of that to us later. But first of all, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you for inviting me. I'm doing really, really well at the moment. So I'm really very looking forward to the 2025, how it's going to look for personally, me, for our company, and also the industry overall.
Fantastic.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. And so explain to me, what does Strategic Business Development Netigate AB, founder at Luma mean? Tell me about you. Tell me about Suvi. Tell me about what the work that you do to give people a bit of a thumbnail sketch.
Yes, I think that's the kind of probably I guess the world record in the lengthiest title of the all times. But let me tell a little bit about history. So my heart has beaten for customers, data, and measurement integrity for almost 25 years. I'm still 25, but it's 25 years, I would say. I've been a consultant in the CX area when I was very, very young, when the CX didn't practically exist. I also been setting up the customer experience measurement system in a big multinational telco. I'm Six Sigma Black Belt, which basically explains part of the love for the data. And I also have been multiple years an insight professional, customer insight professional or consumer insight professional at Nokia and Microsoft. And basically, what I've seen these roles is that there's a lot of pain in organizations about collecting a lot of voice of customer surveys, survey opinions, all of that. And there's these 4 guys, insight professionals, who are building every month or every quarter a report, sending it over by email, crossing their fingers and hoping that somebody would read it. And that's I would say it's mission impossible to get the voice of the customers heard. And that was the main reason, the pain point, and also I experienced myself when we established the company Lumoa, founded the company Lumoa 8 years back. And our vision was all about empowering every employee to make right decisions based on the voice of the customer. It's all about getting the voice of the customers out there in the organization as widely as possible, making sure that the decisions are made so that there is a voice of customer involved in the decision making as well. And after these 8 years, we got acquired by Netigate. The company was where I'm working at the moment. And basically now I'm helping the company to further in the business development. So in the commercial side of the company. Not anymore a founder, so I'm actually an employee. So that's a big transformation, but I still want to help the company in the commercial side.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Now, I also know that given that you're experience and love of data and analytics. I mean, there has to be some love and passion there given to sustain you over so many years in this sort of space. But given also that you also have been writing a lot recently and about making some predictions about the contact center. And you also, I put together a predictions piece at the end of 2024 and I had 396 different submissions from over 200 people, and thank you for sending in some predictions to me, and yours made the overall story, so thank you for that. But rather than focusing on those, you've also been making your own predictions, and I wanted to understand what's the biggest prediction that you're making about that sort of contact center space right now, and why is it happening, and why is it needed? What's the driver? What's the thinking behind the prediction?
Yes, so over these years that I've been working with different companies, mostly enterprise sector, And what I've been experiencing is that many times the contact centers, they typically have a lot of employees in, they bear a lot of costs. And the objectives of the contact centers have been typically revolving around efficiency. So how can I decrease the cost of a contact from €7, $7, £7, whatever it is, by 10%? And so I can kind of reduce the total cost of customer care by X%. And this is basically the kind of the thinking what it's leading into is companies trying to minimize the call times. They're minimizing the time it takes to wrap up the things after the call. They are kind of creating bots and online tools and all of that to avoid people to actually call them, to talk to a human. They're kind of trying to avoid people to talk to humans. And on a high level, it makes sense to be more efficient. But I've been thinking about how about if it could be more effective, and could it actually lead to bigger, better business results and rather sooner? So what I mean is that kind of if you're just making it more efficient within the customer care, how about in the context of the whole company? What if you would, instead of minimizing the call times, you would be actually trying to reduce the reasons for contact? And I think it has been on everybody's lips in every call center. Okay, we need to reduce the calls, reasons for contacts, because that's basically what creates us the cost. That's basically what creates us the lot of work for ourselves. And I think that you think it again from a customer's perspective. So I believe that kind of no one willingly wants to call a customer care, wait in a line for 5 minutes or 10 minutes to talk to a human, if they believe that they can do the same thing online. And actually, in one of your fairly recent podcasts, Adrian, you mentioned the Forrester study, saying that about 25% of customers want to solve their problem online, but only 14% are able to do it.
Actually, it was Gartner.
It
was Gartner. And the
mistake.
study was 70% of customers want to solve self-serve.
Yeah.
But only about 14% were able to achieve what they needed to achieve. And when it was become really, really simple, a really, really simple inquiry, that not 14% only went up to 30%.
Yeah, exactly. So if you know that, okay, 14% is able to do it and 70% is able want to do it, it basically means that you're kind of forcing your customers to solve their problem online. And even if you know that 3 out of 4 will not be able to do it. So what I'm kind of seeing is that especially those companies with the bigger contact centers and with a lot of different organizational units, they have own tools in the different units, and they are kind of, each unit is gearing towards their own goal. And very, very often, or I would say always, but probably that's not the case. So the visibility of the kind of the reasons for contact on a very granular level, it's non-existent for the different units. So it means that when actually they said the product management or marketing or other units are making decisions on what to improve, they don't have the information that customer care has in their data systems. And that is basically the kind of the potential that I'm talking about. So if there would be possibility, and there is now, with the kind of the quality of the call recordings has gone up dramatically over the 1.5 years, last year 1.5 years. The large language have enabled that you can actually kind of, for each individual call recording or ticket, you can understand at scale the reason for contact. And what it means is that when you add some UI on top of it, you basically have a tool which makes it possible across the whole organization to understand on a very granular level the reasons for contact. And when you can do this, so technology is already there. When you can do this, it will become a kind of engine, because every employee, they want to make best out of their role. They want to make the best decisions, but they just don't have the data available. Right. So my prediction is that the companies are starting utilize the technology that is already kind of has been developing there over the last 2 years to actually democratize the data in the contact centers, make it accessible across the organization, and that will create an engine which will start we will start actually reducing the contact reasons, and it will be reducing the workload. of the customer care, and then the customer care will actually start having time to spend with the customers. They will actually be happy to spend more time with customers. They will be starting to dig deeper into customers' problems because they know that the product management is going to know about exact problem and they're going to solve it.
So I get that. I agree with that. And I think that's going to definitely where things are kind of going. I guess there's also the other big assumption that goes with that is that you can democratize access to the data so that people always have access to it. But then you also got to have a culture of empowerment and continuous improvement that goes with that. That's almost like the prerequisite. Because if you don't have that, then the data sort of enables that. Because that's about insight and awareness and things. So you have this kind of, we're always kind of there. But like you said before, there's a lot of these voice of the customer practitioners that are putting together all these reports and sharing it around and then hoping people read it. So actually, there's two levers you've got to have in place. You've got to have the right sort of culture and right level of empowerment, but also the democratization of the access to data. And those are the two things are prerequisites to help you get to that point, which is the over there bit.
Exactly. And I kind of believe that the part of the challenge with these Insight or CX units and why it has been so, well, basically the business has been always asking for, can I get actionable insights? Can I get actionable insights? And the challenge there is that the actionable means different for somebody from marketing and somebody from product management, somebody who is managing a product X versus product Y. So the kind of the challenge for this insight guy again, which I kind of strongly resonate with, is that I cannot create one report for each person. And I do believe that, or maybe that's I don't know if that belief is wrong, but at least I believe that most of the people want to really know what's inside, but they don't have the time, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the tools to basically understand what are the reasons for contact, as an example, even though they have the need. And this is kind of what I believe that what will actually make it possible for the organizations, because there is this motivation in individuals, I believe. Everybody wants to do their best job. Everybody wants to I want to know if I'm going to be spending my time on developing feature 1, 2, or 3. I want to know which one of those is actually helping our customers most. And I believe that is there. Yeah. And that I believe that we can use as an engine. So there is hunger for data. There's hunger for better understanding in the organizations, but the hunger and the current methods don't match. So the methods and means that we are currently doing it with are ancient. So it doesn't just serve the purpose of it.
I mean, so, but I also going to realize that there's a difference between what possibly could happen and what probably will happen, because sometimes the possibility, like it races, can move at a pace which is, well, completely different to the reality on the ground. Many different organizational realities around the nature of their business, the technological architecture, like legacy systems, all the kind of those systems architecture that doesn't quite lend itself to some of this type of pace of change. So if we're talking about this kind of this aspirational kind of place in the state. Let's not put it in the future, an aspirational state, if you like, where you've got organizations that have democratized their access to data and have the right type of culture in place, where they're always on the lookout for the why this is happening, or what can I learn from this? What are the customers saying? And how can I respond to that? So if I was to say to you, give me a sense of like where we are in terms of maturity of the market, in terms of who's there, who's already doing it, what percentage, how many people recognize it's there, and they're like, we're trying to figure out how to get there, and how many people or how many organizations are like going, where's there? We don't even know that there exists. Sort of almost still living in that sort of thing, like like a sort of almost a state of, I'm not going to say ignorance, but they're just like, they've got their head in the sands, as it were. How does that kind of like split out as a population?
Yeah, I think that was also a very interesting question. So I think the great thing is that the motivation to get there is kind of across the whole board. So I believe that in every company there's the motivation, and that's built in. But the kind of that's not there if you kind of want to go. If I want to lose weight, I'm not there yet. So
Right.
so it doesn't like kind of match. But what I would say that 2 years back, no one was there. That's
Okay.
what I kind of started off with. On the market side, what I've seen that over the last 1 year, 1.5 years, we actually have come across companies who are looking for it.
Right.
So that specific, they want to find a solution which can help them to kind of democratize the data, this customer care data across the organization and help to improve the products. And who are they? Is that based on my experience, they mostly been, how I would kind of profile them, have been growth companies with 200 to 1,200 employees, so fairly small ones still, who are the ones that have been moving fastest in the field. They seem to have figured it out on their own. So it's not that somebody told them that, okay, you need to get there. Probably they haven't read it about something. They just got this kind of in her head kind of feeling that, okay, there must be something out there who helps us, which helps us to kind of get more customer centric. And what is kind of commonalities with those companies have been that they have strong urge to grow now as a company, not making the time the critical resource. So it's not like, yeah, we want to grow like 2% in a year, but it's not, we need to do it now. There's also belief in the management team level that you can only grow if you solve your customers' problems and are truly customer centric.
Right.
That would be just as a second point. A third one would be that there is really a reluctance to hire more people to solve a problem. And they are trying to avoid the kind of hiring more people, and they are seeking for tech to help them out.
Right.
And the fourth one would be that, which is related to the size of the organization, is the kind of the closest of the organization. So in these size of organizations, the product management, customer care, CX unit, they still talk to each other.
That's the point that I was gonna jump in on. It's like, do you think there's a thing? You talked about size and how when you get to a certain point, that you got companies that are in a growth phase, and because they've come from a very tight nucleus of kind of people, where people have been doing all sorts of different things and usually multiple things, and then they've grown and they develop teams to look after certain domains. But because they have that history of talking to each other, that actually that keeps them, even though they grow bigger, they're still connected. And they can still see each other in the corridor. And it's not like you haven't gotten to that point where you join a part of the organization and then you sort of never speak to another part of the organization. So they have that, it's a small company culture, ethos sort of thing. But that doesn't mean to say, I don't think, that you can't create that in a larger organization. It just takes a little bit of effort, different type of effort.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it just reminds me of a story. There was a guy called Martin Gribnow who now was on the podcast years ago, and he's a veteran of a bunch of big transformation projects, kind of very good at what he does. Now runs a small retail one of the smaller retail banks in the Netherlands. And he told me an interesting thing about, and he was operating in big corporates, people like ING, people like IPsoft, Genworth Financial, these sort of things. And he said every time he went to an organization, this is what his value proposition was to the organization. Someone said, this is how I work. And if you don't like it, don't hire me, sort of thing. And he said, I split my time 3 ways. He says, well, prior to coming into the organization, I spent a month working as an intern in the organization, so I understand how things work before I'm in position and what levers I can pull, as it were. And she says, then I split my time three ways. He says, I spend a third of my time hanging out with the people on the front line that serve customers to really understand how things kind of like operate and to get closer to the data, and the people. I says, then I spend another third of my time wandering about the organization, figuring out how it all works, meeting people, kind of talking to people. And she says, my final third of the time, this is like I reserve for doing my, as he puts it, my proper job, the things that are listed on my job description. And he said, so that's how I operate. And if you don't like it, then don't hire me. And I think and I'm not saying that everybody should go and do that, but I think what it does do, it illustrates that even in a large organization, that actually the thing that makes it really work at the level that you're talking about, that small company, very customer focused, is that it maxes out and amplifies that human connection, the human connection that needs to kind of like to happen to make these things kind of like work, to increase making sure that people still talk to each other. And I think it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah, it is. And it how I kind of thinking about it is that first of all, management team is a team.
Mm-hmm.
So how much do they really spend time together besides the agendas of these meetings and being very, very topic focused? How much there is this kind of free talk that is really, no, it's called free talk, but kind of how much is there this kind of just spending time together in a way or another, so that kind of you can ask questions, you can prompt them on kind of, and you don't need to worry about interrupting them, working in the same space for 2 days in a month or something. How much there is this one? Because it's kind of these invisible things that you cannot schedule into your calendars, or you can if you kind of are scheduling a kind of, okay, this is when I'm going to be working at the office with the rest of the management team. But I somehow believe in a lot that the connections come on those unplanned.
Sure.
During the unplanned time. And do you have that unplanned time? Can you somehow like bring people together and encourage them just to sit in the same room and without meetings?
Well, does that not then require people to actually try and free themselves from the tyranny of having a calendar that's completely full of meetings all of the time?
Yeah. Isn't that what they probably are preaching to their team members?
Right? Create some
right?
space.
Create some space for thinking.
and maybe start practicing saying no to meetings.
Yeah, could be.
And I think that's the thing is, but I think that you end up when you follow the thread down, it all kind of it ends up with people and how they manage their time and how they use their time.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes about choices.
Yeah, and when I kind of think about it, it's like, if I say now, well, when I've said that now out in this kind of podcast, okay, it's important to reduce the number of, reduce the reasons for contact from the customers. Everyone knows. There's no person on the earth who says that it doesn't make sense. But I've talked to too many companies, a little bit kind of bigger than these growth companies.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk to their customer care managers or directors, and when I talk about and ask about what are the objectives for your customer care, very, very few mention that we actually want to reduce the number of contacts coming in.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's about the effectiveness, that the kind of all the measurements are about efficiency. So as long as you kind of focus on the busyness and being like moving those small needles around, you oftentimes I feel that kind of many bigger companies, they are losing the track. They are losing the kind of the track of truly understanding why the customers are contacting. Because it means that if the customer is contacting you, mostly it's not about kind of buying something more, but it's about some annoyance that they have had in the experience that you have delivered to them.
Mm-hmm.
You should be interested. And the customer care is like, yes, you might get those annoyances also in NPS surveys or in complaints, but they are in so small volumes. But if I think about the volumes that are coming to the customer care every day, every hour, sure, that's like, it's a gold mine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that's emerged out of both my predictions, but also I think also yours, is that actually, to use your words, that the contact center is this real-time data goldmine for what's actually happening, not just for your customers, but your business. Because you take what they're saying and you extrapolate it also to all sorts of different parts of your kind of business, whether it's product or marketing or sales, or kind of like just general service or kind of operations or logistics or whatever. I mean, the people are talking to you all the time. and not just through surveys, but through email, through voice, through chat, through messaging, all these different things. You just need to plug in to understand that. But the thing is, it's not just about plugging in and understanding that, but it's also plugging in and understanding that and then giving people access to that. And I think that technology has moved to such a point now that that's always been the case. If you ever wanted to understand what was going on in a company, then you go hang out in service and support, kind of like the contact center, and you get it in full volume. Sort of like it's there. But I guess we're now being able to have technology that can plug in to these data sources and also kind of like read and understand them and intuit kind of like what might be going on, pattern spot at scale. I think that's the key thing.
Exactly, and maybe pointing out one more topic here is about the privacy and security topic, especially within the EU and also obviously across the whole world. But what has been like preventing this change a little bit earlier has been that, okay, I cannot just allow anyone in the organization to listen to customer calls because the customers, especially if it's a consumer business, they're talking about with their own name, with their own, I don't know, social security numbers or authenticating themselves, giving their kind of all the details, probably maybe even like in the healthcare or some other sector, like really, really personal data kind of details. And there has been that has been slowing down the process. But now there is what technology provides as well is that, okay, you can anonymize. If you have a call recording, you have a ticket, whatever you have, chat transcript, before you kind of hand it over or before kind of at the same time as you process the data, you can anonymize it. You can take away the social security numbers, the license plates, all the addresses, all the kind of bank account information, all of those that you don't want the kind of rest of the company see that, so that starts to be kind of one less excuse not to share it.
Sure.
In the organization, and it's kind of feels a small thing, but it's a huge thing, especially when with the bigger organizations and when I talk to the kind of privacy security people, it kind of they would stop it if there's all the customer details out there in their call recordings, and they would stop the efforts and no, that's not going to happen. Come back when it's more like anonymized data.
So, I mean, I think the thing you did mention there is that there are some smaller kind of like, well, there's some growth companies, some scaling companies that are already there. They're already figured it out. They're always sort of kind of doing it. But I mean, I'm sure there's probably also other examples of brands that you're working with that are leading in this kind of like space, because it feels like this emerging thing where people are going, oh, of course, it's this massive pool of data that we can use and we can apply technology to that, which kind of then is very cognizant of privacy and security sort of things, but we can parse out all sorts of insights that have applicability to all sorts of parts of the business, but that we can never give everybody access to that to enable them, to empower them to make these kind of changes, to reduce the reasons for people for contacting the business on an ongoing kind of basis. But I'm pretty sure that formerly in Lumoa and now at Netigate, that you're working with some brands that are already there, as it were, because that's kind of what you were kind of doing.
Yeah.
So to bring this all to life, help me understand, if maybe through an example, a named example, if you can. Tell me about what you've done to help them, because I think that's kind of important. Rather than going, we just talk about, oh, it's this wonderful place over the hill over here. Tell me about kind of what needs to happen in order to facilitate that. I mean, from a, people, process, technology, strategy perspective, whatever feels kind of like salient.
Yeah.
Tell me a customer story.
I'll tell an unnamed hybrid customer story, which is a combination maybe from a couple of different customers, but the commonality in the beginning needs to be that there's a pain point in the organization. So with these growth companies, it can be like something that you need to grow and you don't want to hire, you want to be really customer centric. With bigger companies, for example, utility companies or banks, the kind of reason can be that, okay, we are actually seeing an increasing number of contacts coming to the customer care. We cannot handle it. We know that there's going to be more contacts coming. We cannot handle it. We need to do something about it. So it's this kind of, there always needs to, it needs to start with the pain in the kind of that the business pain that the company has. So otherwise, no technology can solve any problem. Most typically, it's about increasing call volumes or really fluctuating call volumes. And then there's also other aspects of kind of pain points that the companies have that, okay, one is that, okay, I need to be able to manage the call volumes in a way or another. Typically, there's also other interesting kind of pain points or aspects that they have. It could be that, okay, who are the customers that are likely to churn? Who should I be worried about? Maybe they don't mention exactly that, okay, if you don't solve my problem, I'm going to move to a different company, my accounts, for example, in a bank. But it could be more like, okay, can AI help in identifying those customers who are very dissatisfied and they kind of, from the point of view of what is the contact reason that they are having, they could be churning actually. Or which are the ones that actually are most likely to have an upsell opportunity. Typically, we kind of, when in the beginning of kind of cooperation, or when we kind of start to kind of either talk together, we identify that, okay, what are the basically business objectives, what you want to solve the solution. Then what we would typically do, we would run through this, we would do a pilot with their own data. 1,000 contacts, for example, is enough to kind of for them to see if the platform is valuable for them. To enable it, we typically run through their privacy, light version of privacy, security, and so on. So that everything's like okay, that they are not sharing with the data with some company who is not okay for going into production format. And then what we'll do is we'll either we typically would be pulling data from the existing call center system or ticket system, whatever it is, uploading in the Lumia platform, and then we would give access to them for that data. They would get the logins to the tool so they can play around. And I would say that, okay, that's one thing for me to demo the platform with dummy data. It's obviously much more valuable if I demo the platform with their own data. It's much more understandable. But the only place when I feel that the future customers are actually getting an understanding on how and if this platform will help us, if when they go in, they start clicking around and they how I see that the neurons start hitting each other, new neurons, and they start to build, okay, could I also be using it for this purpose? Can I also do it with this one? So it's kind of like, I would say I don't consider my job to have been kind of in the sales, but it's more like in the education. It's up to the customers to decide if this will be useful to them, but at least they know what is possible with the use of technology, and start understanding that, okay, this is how the customer care manager could be using it. This is how this person who is responsible for retention can be using it. This is how the product management can use it, and so on. That's when you start pulling together the return on ROI calculation and bring it together, and then it make it up for decision. And okay, is this something that we're going to be using or not?
I mean, and what sort of benefits are they, like sort of tangible benefits are they being able to achieve when they're doing that, when they actually kind of have gone through that process, is it that they've gone, and what's the sort of the cycle time on that? Because again, it's one thing to many people, myself included, but I'm sure many people that are listening to this kind of podcast have probably worked in a corporate environment and know that sometimes you can identify a change, you can try and start making a change, but actually making the change can take some time. And so kind of what are you seeing in terms of that kind of like, one, the sort of the tangible benefits that organizations that you're working with, that if you like had the ones that have gotten there, that mythical place over there where they've got these things in place and then they're starting to make the changes, what sort of impact is it having? And like, how long has it taken them to get to that point?
So typically the first insights and really actionable insights you get already during the pilot. Obviously the volume is so small that you kind of can think, okay, can I rely on it or not? But from the customer care side, what you could learn is that what the customers have learned is that, okay, we're using also AI to understand was the problem solved. So not surveying the customer, but you're asking AI if the problem was solved. So you can see that, okay, what are the types of contact reasons where we can't actually solve the customer's problem when they call in. It means that if we cannot solve it, likely they're going to call again. So you can kind of understand better, should we kind of be improving the instructions for the agents? Should we be actually kind of, is there something that why we cannot solve the problem for the customer? Another good angle could be that, okay, the problem resolution for across the agent or across the teams. So maybe there's one team who is, or one person who is actually has a higher call resolution. Maybe the team can learn from it.
Right.
And then for the other units, I would say the product management, typically they are fearful what they will get a lot of improvement needs for the kind of changes that take a lot of time.
Right.
But oftentimes there's very simple questions around the knowledge space or the articles and support articles and so on that can already rephrasing or reformatting how the knowledge base is structured, for example, can have a huge impact on the coming in, like and the calls that are coming in. And I would say one of the reasons is that 70% wanted to kind of solve it online.
Right.
But they couldn't. So.
Yeah, no, indeed. And here's the thing is like to that point around product managers and how sometimes changes might take a long time. And it might knock them off trajectory in terms of their own sort of product roadmap and all these different sort of things. What I would say to that is like going, actually, when you look at things, more often than not, sometimes they're solved. To your point, it may be just to do with the knowledge base. It reminds me of a case. I remember there was a case, I think it was to do with EE here in the UK, the mobile telecoms company. And they had a project, this is a few years ago, they had a project which was they wanted to reduce the customer's propensity to call them when they had a kind of problem. They did two things. One was that they went and asked a whole bunch of customers, tell us all the things that we need to fix, all these kind of problems. Mm. And then went and asked the employees too, like, tell me all the things that we need to fix. And they made all these lists. They went through them all. And they made like hundreds of small changes over the course of a 2-year period. And interestingly enough, over 80% of all those changes were non-technical in nature. Mm-hmm. And it saved them thousands and hundreds of thousands of pounds. Mm-hmm. Had this massive impact on both their customer satisfaction and NPS scores, as well as their eNPS sort of scores. Like morale just went up because things just got easier and better. And so I'd always say is that people that they're in that sort of technological space, they sometimes default to, that's going to take more code or different coding mm-hmm. or a different version, a different release, and all these different things. We have to fill that into our plans. And you're like going, actually, don't be too quick to make assumptions about what are the nature of the changes that you have to make, because sometimes the nature of the changes are to do with how something's written or how something kind of like a form that works or a process that doesn't quite kind of like isn't quite joined together. And actually some of them are just really small things.
I fully 100% agree. And I've been even thinking in my own head over the last couple of months that what if all the companies would kind of dedicate 1 week or 2 weeks in a quarter just for fixing these small things? Mm-hmm. Like taking time to fix these small things and not overlooking them. Mm-hmm. How different will the world actually be? Because I do believe, similar as yours, that it's not, there are big things to fix for every company, and there's those big elephants that you need to put in the pieces and implement one by one. But if you kind of are saying that, okay, our roadmap is full for this year, our roadmap is full for this quarter, it means that you're kind of rejecting these mm-hmm. very small changes that take very little effort but improve so much the customer experience. And I truly believe in the same thing. A lot of small things available for fix that can be fixed today, tomorrow, instead of fixing them and putting them in the roadmap and fixing them in the beginning of 26.
But here's the thing. and this is kind of thing we have to kind of like acknowledge, and because it's anathema to sometimes many corporate sort of cultures, is you don't get promoted for fixing lots of small things. There, I said it.
Mm.
But the problem is, and so this is our challenge, is we have to make the boring sexy.
Yeah.
Because actually fixing lots of small things can take time and hard work and commitment and all these different sort of things. And it's sometimes it can be a bit of a grind, and it's not necessarily glamorous. It's not very sexy sort of thing, but it can have this immeasurable impact. As you say, it has almost a compounding effect. Lots of small things when you add them all together, but are sometimes typically corporate organizations is that's not the sort of things that we reward or acknowledge or show up as having lauded status.
Yeah, you don't get the success. You don't get the employee of the month for that.
Right?
Yeah.
And therein, I think lies the problem.
Yeah. So maybe bulking them into kind of that, okay, for 1 week, for 2 weeks, we do only small things. Maybe it's one small thing. It's not just the one small thing. It's a part. It's a part of this bucket, which has a lot of small things, and that makes the impact.
Yeah. Perfect. So, Suvi, we're just conscious of time. Anything else that you want to kind of add or highlight that you just want to throw in around this whole idea of the contact center being this gold mine of real-time insight that we need to be leveraging to to understand our business, better understand our businesses, but also to empower us to kind of reduce customers' needs to call us, if you like.
I would maybe like to go a little bit back to a specific topic that we touched upon very briefly during the call. And I would encourage people, individuals, like you and me as well. It's equally difficult for everyone to take time for daydreaming on kind of how your organization will function when it's customer-centric. Take your colleagues take a cup of coffee, invite your colleagues, have a kind of session of just dreaming and visioning about how the future would be. It's impossible for each of us to know kind of what technology enables, and we don't need to understand the technology in depth, but we need to have the vision around how would I, if I wouldn't have any blockers, how would I like this company to work? How do I see that it will work when it's a customer-centric? But that kind of, if you don't have that thinking, you don't have the vision. And then it means when you don't have the vision, you will not find a way to get there because you don't have a vision.
Well, you don't know where there is.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So how do you know you've arrived if you don't know where there is?
Maybe this what we have discussed is you're there. Maybe it's something else, but like the more concrete, the more kind of more visual it is for you, the more likely you are actually find your way there. Find the tools that support it, find the individuals that are supported, while the processes, the organizational setup that are actually supporting you. Maybe it's the daydreaming. Maybe it can be the kind of the promise for the new year or for the new quarter.
I think that's absolutely right. I think that's a great idea. So take a little bit of time just to envision kind of where you want to be. Where is there? What does there look like? And how will you know when you've got there?
Is this there? You're there, or is it somebody else is there?
Indeed, brilliant. That's a great point, and it's a nice way to kind of round out what we were talking about. That sort of idea, taking some time to imagine where you want to get to and why and how you're going to do it. But what I want to do is just kind of quickly wrap up with a few quick fire questions before we finish up. And so, because we talk about a whole bunch of different things, and the first question I want to ask is it's like a boiling it down question, Suvi. And the way it's like a best advice type of thing. And the way I've been asking people to do that recently is for asking them to complete this sentence. And the sentence is, if you want to improve your customer employee experience, Suvi says, do this, ... Complete that sentence. How would you complete the sentence?
Spend time regularly listening your customers' calls or understanding the reasons for contacting, and make your company's management do the same. It grounds yourself personally. It also grounds the management team and make certain that when you are solving problems, you're solving the right problems.
Perfect.
Because solving the right problems, that's the key.
Perfect. That's brilliant. Thank you. Second question, and it'd be remiss of me not to ask a punk-related question, given this is the Punk CX podcast. And so what company or brand do you think takes more of a punk approach to customer experience, or is like a real experienced leader? They're just doing their own thing and just leading their field.
Yeah, this is coming more from a more personal experience. I would mention a brand called Revolut here.
Okay.
And I've been their customer, I don't know, 4-5 years, long time. And I have a family of 5. So I have 3 kids, spouse, we set the finances, we do kind of some individual finances, shared finances. And the fact that I actually haven't needed, over the course of 4 years, talk to anyone. I've been able to, the fact is that I've been able to set up the account. I have been able to get the card for myself. I've been getting the cards for the kids who are all minor, without any interaction with the actual human being. We have a joint finance account set up with my spouse, who we are not married to. So there is kind of like, we've been able to set it up without, again, contacting the bank. We are getting the replacement cards for the kids because they are kind of ruining them or losing them without any interaction. I've set up a kind of this automated weekly allowance system for the kids in the app itself. There is this kind of task management system for the kids. So if you do this and this and this, you can get this and this much of money. So I'm training them on the finances. The kids can decide their own saving, kind of where they want to save. One of the kids is saving for a horseback riding course or class or camp in the summer. They can put a horse icon there, and they can be kind of putting aside some money there. It's brilliant. It's so smooth experience, and it's also, for me, it all the time feels that when they are bringing new releases, new features to the app, that they are actually solving my problems, not somebody else's problems, but my problems.
Okay,
which is important.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. What a great kind of like, and also that's like a full family solution, which is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the final question before we wrap up, I want to end on a good news story because, well, recently, and sometimes it's like the recently is quite a long period of time. The world's been quite weird, and there's all sorts of things kind of going on. And to try and stop the constant doom scrolling that goes on, is I've been asking people to share with me almost even if it's a personal kind of good news story, but just share me the story. What's the most interesting, positive, or exciting thing that you've seen in the last week?
Yes, I would say that for me, this is not personal, but maybe not personal just to me, but it could be personal. I'm coming from Finland, and the Nordic countries, we've only recently this year gotten some snow. So snow is the personal success story. So we got snow down. It has kind of been replaced the kind of the darkness that we've had. Darkness, a kind of very wet period. Now we have actually at the moment also I can see outside. There's snow. There's a couple of degrees below zero. You can go cross-country skiing. You can do sledging, and there's the sun as well. So it's like this kind of night becoming a day,
right?
And it cheers not just me here in kind of in this higher up in the kind of earth, but the whole kind of nation seems to be kind of more alive when there's light and when there's snow.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, Suvi, that's all I have time for. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise today, and also for your advocacy for the contact center being this real-time data goldmine that people need to start leveraging to make a real difference. So I tip my hat to you for that. So thank you for that. But that's been great. And so, yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been awesome.
Thank you for inviting. It has been my pleasure.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinsko.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.